Hey, Jason, thank you so much for joining me to talk about recession-proofing software business models. So welcome to everybody. Appreciate you all being here. Jason, the only thing I guess I want to say by way of introduction is, other than the fact that you're our CEO and kind of leading the way on this IP, this topic is super important because it's in the chapter of the book that you're currently working on right now. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about yourself before we dive into this, but thank you very much for doing this.
Sure. Well, thank you. And yes, the book work is ongoing right now. In fact, it was really helpful to prepare the webinar because we actually refined some of the ideas and some of the images that we're using to describe these approaches to how to think about different choices you can make and business decisions that can help your overall business succeed, even in times of uncertainty, without worrying about building new features. So there's actions you can take that don't involve driving to build faster, build harder, build sooner. Instead, I think a more thoughtful consideration of your options can lead to a lot of ways to protect about it against any downside risk. So that's really what I want to focus on today.
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, I mean, my role in the company is I run sales, and I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of people who are in that product space and thinking about sustainable profitability for their products and services. And, the intersection of like the software business modeling that, clearly product managers are really comfortable thinking about, but how that intersects with pricing choices and architectural choices, and all of a sudden the whole thing becomes a whole lot more complicated. So the last thought I'll leave folks with before I really turn it over to you is, this is just one of many webinars that we'll be hosting, and I've volunteered myself to be the one to talk with Jason because stuff like this is interesting to me as well. So stay tuned. We'll be recording this and sharing this with everybody. And then, of course, for the next one, the next chapter of the book, or the next big section of it, will be kind of slicing away at that book topic and having a series of these. So thanks everyone for joining. If you have questions, please put them into the Q&A portion. I'll be monitoring that. And when it makes sense, I'll throw some over to Jason. If I think of a few of my own, I'll be doing the same thing. And we'll leave time at the end for some general Q&A. So thank you so much. Jason, take it away.
All right. So here's the quick agenda. We're going to first talk about what problem we're trying to solve, make sure we're on the same page of the topic. And then I'll get into the 4 strategies: the first, term renewal acceleration, and then segmenting the customers for the same type of offer, then getting into multi-term renewal acceleration. And then one that I think is really interesting is free-term development. And finally, I'll end with some time for Q&A. So just jumping right in, the current situation, this is the latest economic reporting that I pulled just last night. And the bad news indicators in one respect are quite clear. Some economic indicators are a bit more ambiguous, but the overall sentiment is that there's slowing growth, and the slowness of the growth in the economy, not only globally, but in the US, is indicative of some troubling times ahead. Similarly, in the next slide, in the next bullet, we're still seeing inflation projections going a bit higher, even in advanced economies as well as emerging economies. As a global economy, we're going to see this impact sort of reverberate around the world, all of which requires that we start thinking about how do we deal with this business demand that's weakening, when there's all sorts of concerns about how economic policy and other externalities like the war in Ukraine, how that can affect overall economic growth. Now's the time to start thinking about what we can do. So the problem statement, the conditions that we're seeing indicate that we may see drops in sales, particularly in software-enabled products and services that are not absolutely essential to running the business. The other concern I have, not only in that sales will be decreasing, but that our average churn or turnover of clients may start increasing as well. So this combination of decreased sales and the decreasing number of renewals can really decrease revenue and reduce overall profit. So the big question that I want to address is, what actions can we take as product leaders to mitigate the risk of a recession and this type of economic hardship? So strategy number one, the one that came to mind immediately for me was accelerating term renewal. So the top line really is looking at the head for the rest of the year at the timing of when customers' terms may start expiring. So you see customer one, they're going to renew in 3 months, and then customer two is going to renew, is scheduled to renew in 6 months. And when they renew, their new term will be good for another year. Well, the idea is to pull that revenue forward. We'll create some type of offer where we would encourage and influence those customers who are renewing in the next 6 months to renew now in exchange for a discount. So we want to give some sort of time limit to create some motivation for the decision to be made now before they see the impact of the economic problems later in the future. So we're effectively just pulling the revenue forward. In a moment, I'll go through how to model this. The second strategy is taking the same idea, but now looking across your segments. So we're getting a little bit more creative. If I make the same offer to all of my customer segments, some customers who love my product, use it every day, they're going to get a great deal. If the same deal is offered to customers who don't normally use my product and they decide not to do it, well, they're not actually going to help at all. By differentiating the offers based on customer segments, I can actually increase the overall impact of the offer I'm making. So we think first about the power users. People use a product multiple times a day or multiple times a week. They may represent a fraction of your total users, and you probably know this, or you're following some sort of instrumentation in your product to track usage. Well, we definitely want to know who they are. We may not even want to offer them a discount. If they're a power user, they may love the product so much that we may not even be concerned about whether or not they'll choose to renewal, even if they face hardship. Now, the next segment is interesting, and it's a pretty large segment. They're frequent users, not as active as the power users, but still fairly active. We want to make them a good offer, something that is compelling to them to say, yes, I want to renew now. Now, the infrequent users are people we want to encourage to use the product even more. So we want to give them a larger discount, in this case, 25%, and then the lost users. In a way, we have nothing to lose. If it's 2% of the total users and they haven't used a product recently, if they get this surprise to, hey, renew and start using our products, come on back for 50% off, we may actually capture some more revenue now, as opposed to losing them in the future, for sure. So we're really, I say, playing the odds here that we might get some results from making a really attractive offer to them as a much lower usage customer. Now, third strategy is to provide a multi-term discount. In effect, we're looking at customers who are going to renew in the next year and asking them to renew early in exchange for an additional year. So if let's say my term was up for renewal in August, not only would we get renewed from August 2022 to August 2023, but I also get into 2024. So a really compelling offer. And in effect, buy now and get 2 terms at 10% off. Now, while this may seem like we don't really know what's going to happen out 18, 24 months from now, we can guarantee the revenue now. And so if you structure the offer right, it may be really smart to increase the attractiveness of the offer, to increase the new revenue we can gain. And then the fourth strategy is to look at pre-term development. So when we think about customers who are making requests, like, hey, I love your product. I'm not ready to buy yet because you haven't added some 3 key features that I need. I really need those benefits. Well, then let's create an offer. We want to get this revenue now before we start building those 3 features. As a result, ask them to buy now and offer that they can start using the product immediately. However, we're not going to start their license term until you actually deliver those 3 features and they've been delivered. So let's say it takes you 3 months to deliver the features. In effect, they've paid for a year, but they've got 15 months of usage of the product. Really smart way to structure the funding of new development by creating a pre-term offer. Very attractive and very easy to construct. So before I go into actually revealing the models and walking through them, what questions have come up so far, Laura?
Well, one of the thoughts I had was the opportunity that people might have to combine those 2 offers. So for example, the power users where you already know that, renewing isn't quite an issue for them, there might be things that are coming in the pipeline that they would actually be willing and excited about funding, in theory, to get it faster or to have more influence or insight into how that's actually being developed. So do you think there's value in also taking a look at the power users and showing them maybe more opportunity to influence the roadmap by helping to fund some of those kind of really key capabilities that are coming? And then in return, they do get an extension of a few months in their, so you get the revenue up front, you focus that on some key development, and you're doing it with people who are really motivated to help you build an amazing product anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Creating combinations of these offers is a great idea. So, and this isn't even an exhaustive list. They're just the top 4 that I think are probably the most easy to construct and model, and then present to other stakeholders to align and agree, because it's going to have impact on a lot of people. Finance obviously has got to be aware of this, because if we don't limit this to the current year, there may be revenue recognition issues. So we definitely want to get finance engaged. We want to run this through for sure with marketing and sales, because marketing is going to be communicating the message. Sales has got to be aware what the potential impact could be in both conditions. Hey, here's what could happen. Here's why I'm creating this offer. Here's why it's a good idea to protect ourselves against downside risk. Are we all in alignment? So I think any approach where we get the maximum alignment for the maximum results is great. So yeah, the complexity of the segmented offer does require that you can actually create those segments. I know who my power users are. I've got the proper data instrumentation within my product to identify them and offer them, and only them, their specific offer versus some other segment. So that's a prerequisite for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I think I will just put into the heads of the people who are on this webinar, and then also for you as well, is, obviously my perspective is always, well, what kind of involvement and impact does this have on the sales organization when new things are injected into what can be offered to clients? So I would just be curious to hear from folks as you think through this, about from your own organizations or just the experience you've had in your world. How difficult might it be, and what are some of the things that we all might need to pay attention to when we start to change the solution offering and also the timing of renewals, right? What does that do to the cadence of a sales organization? How salespeople are either compensated or rewarded or incented, right? And those are things that, clearly there's another spot at the table for figuring out, well, how does the sales organization optimize this on behalf of the health of the organization or the solution? So I don't have any questions specific or answers, but as we continue to go through this, I'd love to hear if there are questions that come from the group on that.
Yeah, it's a topic I do want to talk about, particularly when I walk through the modeling. In a way, the model that I built is very conservative, and I'll share why in a moment. Before I dive into the model, let me just walk through the tactics. Obviously, we'll be sharing this presentation with everyone. But the first thing to do is model the current state. What does it look like with no impact from any externalities in the coming year? Then we want to look at what we expect from increased churn, whatever predictions you're making. If we are afraid of a 20% drop, 25% drop, what does that look like? So we can at least know if we do nothing, what could happen, because we need something as a baseline for comparison once we model our offer. So create the offer, model the response, then run all the numbers. What are the results? If I do this and make this 10% offer during this month, how many people do I think will take advantage of the offer? And what does the overall revenue look like for those that take the offer, plus those who don't, given the risk of the increase in churn? And then communicate the offer and measure the results, because you do want to see what the impact is from month to month. And that's one thing about the blog post I wrote it right at the end of June to say, it's a great offer for July, great time to run it. Run one in July and think about, is there something else we want to do in August? Maybe make some changes and adjustments based on the results. So these can tie together over the short run when we're looking at the sort of longer lead time problem that we're facing. So let me bring up the sheet. I practiced a little bit walking through this. Instead of making a bunch of slides, what I wanted to do is effectively do sort of a slow reveal of the spreadsheet and sort of walk through the formulas as I go. And the reason I say that is because we published a couple of the thumbnails of this, but they weren't super easy to read. So I do want to click through. You'll get a copy of this when we're done. But starting with a scenario. So I offer a nice product, annual license cost just $79 list. And I keep that constant just for the purpose of the simplicity of the model. And now before this point in 2022, last year, we may have seen 5% churn, maybe the year before that. So we're turning over just 5%, which is pretty good, right? We're able to retain 95% of our customers. Now here's our concern, right? The first thing we want to model, and this cell is key because it'll allow you to do some sensitivity analysis. We're forecasting a 20% impact. Okay, so next step, let's look what customers are in queue to renew over the next 6 months. All right, so added some numbers here. You know, in the month of July, we're expecting 18,423 due for renewal. Okay, and then from there, we'll look at what is the revenue. So assuming 100% of them renew, here's what we could earn. Okay, now we want to look at, okay, last year it was 5%. So what are the results there? So if we actually were stable at about 5%, about 8.6 million, right? Obviously 400K less than what it would be without the churn, but okay. Now we're going to look at the impact of the problem. If we increase the churn to 20%, we're now looking at a pretty big drop off, right? 1.4 loss, a little bit less than that, but about 1.4 million. So what can we do to mitigate that loss? We want to decrease the impact. We know we're going to lose something somewhere between 8.6 and 7.2, but I want to have it be the lowest possible amount. So that's the whole idea here. So that 1.36, that's what we want to protect. So let's just say it's 10%. Now here's my prediction. So if I make the offer now in mid-July, well, if people were due to renew in July, a reasonable assumption is I make this offer right now and say, hey, you're up for renewal in the next couple of weeks, take this offer. It's highly likely that people will be more compelled to take the offer. Similarly, I'm sending this out also to everyone else that's due to renew. So if somebody's coming up next month, well, I'm predicting they'll be 90% likely to take the deal. And I'm being, again, conservative here and saying, well, for September through December, they haven't really thought about it much here, particularly if people in December. I got 6 months to wait. I don't want to worry about it. Or there might be a population that says, yes, I was going to renew anyways, but I want to take advantage of this offer now, right? Because even they're probably thinking, you know, getting the good deal now, I don't know how good my budget will be in December. This is a good idea for me, so I'll take it. So taking those numbers from above, multiplying through by the percent that we expect, right? So we can see here, I'm just multiplying 100% times this, multiplying 90% times 18,340, 16,506 from the August renewals, right? I can see that I'm actually pulling forward 74,000 customers, okay? Now there are remaining customers who might renew in future months, right? And I do want to know that. So I want to keep those in the calculations because there still might be some people that do renew even though they didn't take advantage of the offer. So as a result, the forecasted revenue, July will be a great month, right? We're going to capture, you know, 5.2 million, which is awesome. Move that up front. We're literally pulling it forward from the renewals that might happen later in the future, and we reduce the impact quite dramatically. So we're going from the 7.25 impact to just 7.8 impact. So that means that we're saving ourselves effectively $500,000 of loss by making this offer now. It's a pretty rudimentary offer. You think about how you can, you know, turn some dials here. I can adjust my early renew discount. That'll have an impact on the attractiveness of the offer. I might be able to drive up the number of customers I can pull forward. You may have some different thoughts on the sensitivity of how many people respond. If I make a more attractive offer, Could I maybe pull in 60, 70% of the customers in September? Don't know. I would probably start with July and treat this first offer as an experiment. Run it for 10% now. You can always run another offer in August and say, hey, remember the offer? Here's the new offer for August only, and see what happens. Okay, so that's the first offer. Did any questions come in while I was doing that?
No, not yet. If anyone does have any questions, definitely put them into Q&A. And as I have my own, I'll definitely sprinkle them in as well.
Yeah. So I mentioned that this is really conservative. I'm looking at this saying, assuming no new sales, right? I'm just looking at my current customer base for the next 6 months. So I'm actually able to get to 7.8 with the current customer base. So you can think how much better this could be if sales is continuing to sell to new customers at current pricing, or even creating new offers to customers who are not current customers. We can actually pull in even more to protect the downside. So this is just one in many steps in a sequence that you can execute to protect yourself. Okay, so let's take a look at the segmented term renewal, which is fun and interesting, just a little bit more complicated. So same starting assumptions. Okay, keep things straightforward. Still $79 with 5% current churn and predicting 25%. But now we get into thinking about the characteristics of these current customers and what offer we want to create for them. Okay, so again, the power users that were embedded in what they're doing every day, highly unlikely to churn. They obviously must like our product, probably want to keep them really close, but we probably don't need to spend any money to keep them, right? By offering a financial incentive, we want to keep them happy with a great customer service and a great product instead. Now, let's look at the frequent users, right? Before the economic crisis, may know that 4% of them churn. Yeah, pretty low number, right? Because they do still use our product frequently, but we still might lose some. But we may be at risk of losing a lot of them, okay? And our prediction is if we make this 10% offer, we'll be able to keep 30% of them. Like the infrequent users, similarly, same modeling, right? 8% of users, I'll give them a big discount, right? 25%. It could work out pretty good, right? We don't have much to lose, right? Because their churn, 30% could get down to 75%. It really doesn't hurt us to make a 25% offer with them. And we may see a 10% take on that. We get to lost users, they may not have used our products at all, right? And if you're like me, you've bought a product and never used it in the past. That great $10 offer for some cool animation tool, that's the one I bought. I thought it looked great, played with it for about an hour and completely forgot I had a license, right? So what do we do with them? Let's give them a really great offer, right? Hey, remember us? Notice I haven't used our product. Really love you. Come back. Here's 50% off if you renew right now. They're huge churn. 70% normally is what we lose, but only 2% of users normally don't care. Here's an opportunity, right? Every dollar is going to be worth every dollar in the future. So let's go for it because we may lose all of them during the economic downturn. They may completely ignore the renewal email in October. Let's offer them something now. And maybe only 5% are going to renew. So it's not a huge amount of revenue, but it's worth the effort. So when we model this out, we first got to look at, okay, how many people do we have in each category? So took sort of same numbers from the last model, but I did break them down, right? What is the percentages of them in each category? And then we can look at, okay, what do we expect for renewing before the crisis? So again, using these percentages here for the average churn before, right? I can look at before, then I look at after, right? Pretty bleak. So we're going from a potential of 17,500 renewals this year to as low as 14,216. Pretty dramatic for December, right? So we look at this on a sum basis, can be quite dramatic. Run that real quickly and see what it looks like. Right, I could lose 87,000 customers due to the economic crisis across these categories. So what can we do? So here we go. I want to look at again, calculate the baseline revenue, right? potential could be up to 9 million. Before we encounter any issues, could be 8.4 million, but our model shows that we could drop to as low as 6.8 million, which is a loss of 1.6. Big problem. Don't want to do that. So let's think about how many we can pull forward into July based on the offer we're going to make. So we're going to make 4 offers to the 4 different segments. I'm sorry, the 3 offers to 3 segments. Not going to worry about the power users. And those are users get to lower price. Okay. So no discount for the power users. So we're just looking at what their revenue flows look like. Then look at the frequent users. Okay. So again, based on the percentages in the table above, we're expecting this many will renew. And these are remaining that will renew through 2022 with the input of the expected forecasted increase in churn. Okay. So that's built into this. So pretty good. Bring in, 2 million now from the power users. Bring in 74K from the infrequent users, and maybe we'll bring in 4,500 from the lost users for total revenue of 7.12. So we're just pulling down the forecast of projections for those who don't take the offer, right? So we're really reducing the shortfall quite dramatically here. And this can, again, we can apply this in multiple different ways, particularly as we think about the whole picture. I've got this strategy here, so I can create these differentiated offers, see the outcome, look again in August, do it again. And again, the conservative nature of this model is that I'm not even recognizing what could be new sales. So Laura, now that you've seen this whole thing, any questions from you or anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what this makes me think about then is the world of product management means that if I'm pulling revenue forward, I'm kind of flattening out the dips that make us have to have really painful decisions, right? So we're smoothing this out, which means that other things that I might be having in my roadmap that might be revenue generating new bits of value, right? Where I'm adding a premium level into the future, I don't have to delay that. Right. I mean, I'm pulling revenue forward from revenue that I'm assuming I was going to get anyway. And part of me thinks, well, if I'm pulling it forward now, that means I'm not getting it later. But what it really lets me do is I'm capturing it now so that I can continue to focus on the upgrades, the new products, the add-ons, the premium feature kinds of things that even a power user would end up spending more money on in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're just going to bind even tighter to the power users and the frequent users. I think the key message of this is that as a product manager, considering what to do right now, of course, we want to keep our eye on the roadmap. We want to keep our eyes on the current sprints, keep building, a great product. But this type of work where you can actually look at your own circumstance, your own models for your products. And we haven't even talked about a monthly recurring revenue model, how to entice a monthly subscriber to turn into an annual subscriber. It's a whole nother approach. All of this can be done without development, right? Mm-hmm. So what I really want to do is, number one, decrease the risk. Number two, I'm going to decrease the stress. I can take some action now, and I can create a much less stressful late summer, early fall. Because who knows what's going to happen? Things could get worse in lots of different ways. And of course, there's going to be, vertical sensitive. Some segments are going to do better than others, and some segments are going to be really bad. So as a result, I can actually keep producing great product, but this type of action doesn't require any of that. Really, I think what this does is elevates the product management voice to actually help the company make really smart choices now. And we're actually getting to a point where we're communicating in ways that the stakeholders need, right? Because I would not expect anyone else to really be thinking about this, maybe other than marketing, about, hey, what are some things we can do right now that don't really cost anything? The only cost here is, how we think about the future, right? We can debate, what these numbers look like, right? I mean, someone may say, Jason, I don't think we're going to lose 20%. I think it's going to be 18%. Well, fine, let's model it. It's still better. I'm still losing a whole lot less revenue. So not only that, I'm bringing forward capital, and cash is king.
Right. So I think what you said, and I'll reframe it in another way that sounds good to me as well, is that product management leader becomes the forcing function for systems thinking inside an organization, right? It's that product thinking that says, I need finance, I need sales, I even need architecture, I even need the maybe some other members from the C-suite to kind of think about like, hey, this stuff matters when we're thinking about insulating our company against untenable shifts in revenue and cash flow and all those other things that run a company. And then, what advised me if I'm a product thinking person is it does allow me to be more future thinking. Yes, I'm pulling revenue forward and I'm thinking about the current situation I might be in, but it provides me the comfort to continue to think about 6, 9, 12, 18 months out into the future about the things that might have a longer runway for me to continue to be able to build inside my organization. So
Yeah.
it's kind of systems thinking. And I think other parts of the organization would love to appreciate being able to look at the sustainability from, the profitable sustainability system. I think they would like to be part of that conversation as well.
Yeah.
I know sales does. I mean, I'm going to speak for every sales leader out there, but sales wants to be part of that conversation, and being able to have it in this way, looking at numbers in this way, I think would be really exciting for a lot of people.
Yeah. I see Mary's question. In a typical small business, I emphasize small business, this is product. I think this is pure, product leadership. In my company of 65 people, the structure was we had obviously CEO, marketing and product were the same person, my boss, and there were 2 product managers, and we had 3 products in the portfolio. I had 2 of them, and he had 1 of them. I ran spreadsheets like this. One, because I was accountable for the overall health of my product. Now, when I model something like this, I would run it past our CFO. I say, hey, let's look at this together, point out any errors, anything that might be, logically unsound in how I'm thinking about this, because it's useful to get that backstop, because he's looking at the other direction. He's looking at his financial reporting from the past. So I want to make sure that my future modeling aligned to his past modeling, which was a good check. But at that point, once I've built it, then I'm presenting it and talking through it with marketing, sales, and ultimately the CEO. I think the CEO in a small company like that, it made sense to run it by him. One, for awareness. It wasn't always necessarily his final approval, but he didn't want to be on board to know what was happening. I think as companies get larger, we start hearing a lot about product-led organizations. To me, a product-led organization, this type of modeling is purely product. If it's more of a sales-led organization, this might be sales and product together, but sales meaning me thinking about this. I imagine most sales conversations right now are about go out there and get customers before things get ugly. They're probably not thinking about retention. They're thinking about new acquisition. So I think it's probably even more important in larger companies that are more sales driven for product to assert some value here by, hey, don't forget, we've got another lever to pull here called retention, and reducing the churn and capturing some revenue early.
Yeah, I agree. Are there other questions that anyone in the audience, you have any questions, post them. But Jason, if you were to, I guess, imagine what might make this hard in a larger organization to have this conversation, I'm guessing it's because they're not happening yet, and knowing who the right people are to invite, who the right people are to show this to, that might be a mystery to some of the product thinking people, product leaders, right? If you're in a large organization, you have that, the difficulty of silos and that kind of thing. So do you have any advice for somebody who might say, hey, this is awesome, and I really do want to start working with it and sharing it with various people? How would you go about finding the right people, or sharing it, or making it a powerful tool in your toolkit?
Yeah. So, and of course, when we, meet product owners and do our product owner workshops, we do get a lot of the indicators that product owners often feel like they're way down in the ladder and just focused on working the team and just cranking out product increments. I think the first step I would take is to work with the director of product management, the VP of product, the chief product officer, because they know how to navigate the politics with all the other stakeholders.
Mhm.
Even if they are the person looking good, it doesn't matter about credit right now. What matters now is survival, right? And success. So even if I present this to the VP of product who takes it and shepherds it and gets it all approved and is the hero, so what? Right? You've
Mhm.
protected your product and you know who created the model. In another avenue, I think, for larger companies, portfolio management offices will get this. I
Mhm.
think if I had a portfolio manager that was an ally or a colleague, I would definitely say, hey, here's something I'm thinking about. What do you think? How's this going to help the portfolio? The cascading effect there is this could be applied to the entire portfolio. Now we've got portfolio, the PMO, who's often, quite powerful within organizations, driving something through the organization to support the health of the portfolio overall.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that certainly makes sense to me. What else do you want to say as kind of parting words? I think we've answered most of the questions that have come in. So if I missed any, please let us know. But I think maybe the takeaway for me is if you can model this with one strategy, then looking at the intersection of a couple of the strategies that you presented here and how one might maybe appeal more to the power users versus ones that are the infrequent users, right? Starting to layer in both different strategies and then also sequencing them in a way that would be kind of, I guess, feel logical and feel like they would resonate with the people who will then hear the offers. It's sort of almost like a layered approach of both sequencing and how you want to structure these different options together to kind of create a really powerful approach.
Yeah, depending on the segments and the size of the segments, you can even add in some additional value. Hey, I know you haven't used the product. Here's an offer for renewal now, 50% and 1 hour of hosted training by one of our customer support specialists. Come back now, sign up here. I mean, you can bundle so many different things together to make something attractive. I think it's a series of tests, seeing what works at the lowest possible cost. That's kind of an inexpensive approach. Come back with some free training.
Yeah. I mean, that also makes me think of, the infrequent users and maybe the really infrequent users. You still may within that particular customer have frequent users, right? You have 99 infrequent and 1 power. To figure out who that 1 power user is in an infrequent customer itself. And then, the 50% renewal, it's like, hey, and you don't want to lose your access to the tool you personally have been using so much, right? So it might be easier for a handful of power users inside an account of infrequent users to actually gain a renewal that they might have lost otherwise. So segmenting and understanding your customer is certainly a big part of this.
Sure. So the spreadsheet will be available after this along with the recording.
Yes.
It covers the first 2 models. We'll work through the model for the last 2 strategies and share an updated spreadsheet as soon as we get that done, probably next couple of weeks. They'll be available for download too.
So you'll know how to reach both of us, but please reach out if you have questions for Jason. I think Jason would love to answer them. And if you have any questions that might lead to another topic for a webinar around this, please let us know.
If you can't tell, kind of love talking about this stuff. It's like, yes. What can we do now? What actions can we take? I mean, this is exactly the type of stuff that gets exciting real fast.
All right.
So yes, do reach out if you'd like to.
All right. I appreciate all of you for being here. Jason, thank you for sharing this with everyone, and we will see everyone on our next webinar.
Great. Thanks, Laura.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.